Captain Jinho Park gripped the control panel as his cargo ship shook violently. Emergency alarms filled the bridge with red light and harsh sounds. Through the main screen, he watched 3 sleek black ships circle his vessel like hungry predators. "Engine power at 30%, his engineer called out. "They hit us good, Captain." Jinho had been a merchant for 8 years, but he had never seen ships like these. They moved too fast and struck too precisely. His cargo ship carried medical supplies to the outer colonies, nothing worth killing for. Yet these attackers seemed to enjoy the hunt more than any prize. "Send distress signal to all frequencies," Jinho ordered. "Tell them we surrender." The black ships did not respond. Instead, they fired again. The shots were not meant to destroy, Jinho realized. They wanted to disable his ship slowly, to make the crew suffer. He had heard stories about raiders who took pleasure in causing fear, but he thought they were just tales to scare new pilots. "Sir, they're jamming our communications," the communications officer reported. "No one can hear us." Jinho watched the enemy ships position themselves. They moved with perfect coordination, like they had done this dance 1,000 times before. One ship stayed behind his vessel to cut off escape. The other 2 flanked him from both sides. It was a classic hunting formation. "All power to engines," Jinho commanded. "We run now, or we die here." His ship lurched forward as the engineer pushed the damaged engines beyond safe limits. The black ships followed easily, firing precise shots that took out his shields piece by piece. They could have destroyed him instantly, but they were playing with their prey. The nearest space station was 4 hours away at full speed. Jinho's damaged ship could not maintain full speed for more than 20 minutes. The mathematics of survival looked impossible. But Jinho had not survived 8 years in space by accepting impossible situations. "Cut all unnecessary power," he ordered. "Life support, gravity, everything, except engines, and basic navigation." The ship went dark except for essential systems. In the sudden quiet, Jinho could hear his crew breathing heavily. The black ships continued their attack pattern, but something changed in their movement. They seemed confused by the sudden power reduction. Jinho smiled grimly. These raiders relied on their prey, behaving predictably. They expected him to call for help, to try to fight back, or to surrender completely. They did not expect him to make his ship look dead while running at full speed. For 12 precious minutes, the trick worked. The black ships fell slightly behind, unsure if their prey was truly disabled or attempting deception. But they were not stupid. Soon they realized the trick and accelerated to catch up. "Station Kepler 7. This is merchant vessel Star Runner." Jinho broadcast as soon as they came within communication range. "We are under attack by unknown vessels. 3 ships. Black hull. No identifying marks. They hunt in formation like pack predators." The response came immediately. "Star Runner. This is Kepler 7. We have defense ships launching now. Maintain your course." Jinho looked at his tactical display. The station's ships were fast, but they would not arrive in time. The black ships were closing the distance rapidly. In 5 minutes, they would be in range for killing shots. "Sir," his engineer called out, "I can give you 1 more burst of speed, but the engines will overload. We might not survive it." "Do it," Jinho said without hesitation. The ship shot forward like a bullet from a gun. The acceleration threw everyone against their seats. Warning alarms screamed as the engines pushed far beyond their design limits. Behind them, the black ships seemed surprised by the sudden burst of speed. 4 minutes later, Jinho's ship limped into the protective range of Kepler 7's defense grid. The black ships stopped their pursuit immediately. They turned and disappeared into the darkness as quickly as they had appeared. 3 hours later, Jinho sat in the station commander's office, giving his report to a room full of officials from different species. The station commander was a tall, crystalline being called Veltar from the Althari race. Next to him sat a massive creature with thick gray skin and small eyes. Jinho knew this was High Arbitrator Zool from the Confederation's Security Council. "These ships you describe," Veltar said in a musical voice, "they match reports we have received from 17 other attacks in the past 3 months. Each time, there are no survivors." "You were fortunate, Captain Park," Zool rumbled. "Most crews do not escape the Void Stalkers." Jinho frowned. "Void Stalkers? You know who they are?" "They are an old problem," Veltar explained. "A nomadic people who raid merchant ships for resources and pleasure. They have been attacking trade routes for over 200 years. 200 years? Jinho could not hide his surprise. "And they are still operating?" Zool's small eyes fixed on the human captain. "The Void Stalkers are not ordinary raiders. They are highly mobile, well-organized, and extremely violent. Every attempt to negotiate with them has failed. They do not seem to want anything, except to continue their attacks." "What about military action?" Jinho asked. "Several species have tried," Veltar said sadly. "The Void Stalkers simply disappear when large fleets approach, then return when the ships leave. They know the galaxy too well. They have hidden bases in places we have never found." Jinho thought about the 3 black ships and their perfect hunting formation. He remembered how they had confused them temporarily with his power reduction trick. These were not mindless killers. They were intelligent predators who had learned to hunt the galaxy's merchant traffic like ancient humans once hunted wild animals. "What is the Council planning to do?" Jinho asked. "We will follow proper protocols," Zool announced. "A diplomatic mission will attempt to establish communication with the Void Stalkers. Perhaps we can find what they truly want." Jinho almost laughed. "Sir, with respect, I don't think they want to talk. They had many chances to demand ransom or negotiate with my crew. Instead, they tried to kill us slowly for fun." Veltar's crystalline features showed mild annoyance. "Captain Park, humans are new to galactic civilization. You do not understand how these matters are properly handled. There are procedures, protocols that have maintained peace for centuries." "Of course," Jinho said politely. But inside, he was thinking about the way those ships had moved. They hunted, like pack animals. And in Jinho's experience, pack animals only understood one language. After the meeting, Jinho sent a private message to Earth's diplomatic mission. The message was simple. "Request permission to assist with reconnaissance regarding Void Stalker situation. These are not pirates. They are predators." The reply came back within hours. "Permission granted. Gather intelligence. Do not engage." Jinho smiled as he read the response. Earth's government understood the difference between gathering intelligence and gathering intelligence. Sometimes, the best way to understand predators was to hunt them back. 2 weeks after Captain Jinho Park's escape, the galaxy's finest diplomats gathered on Station Kepler 7. The crystalline Althari brought their best negotiators. The insectoid Thex sent their most skilled communicators. Even the proud warrior clans of the Krogan offered their most diplomatic representatives. Ambassador Veltar stood before the assembled delegates, his crystal body reflecting the lights of the conference room in beautiful patterns. "Today marks a new chapter in galactic history," he announced. "We will be the first to establish peaceful contact with the Void Stalkers." High Arbitrator Zool nodded his massive head. "Our xenolinguists have prepared translation protocols for 47 different communication methods. Our cultural specialists have studied every known nomadic society in the galaxy. We are ready for any form of contact they might prefer." In the back of the room, a small group of humans sat quietly. They wore simple gray uniforms with no decorations. Most of the other delegates had forgotten they were there. Commander Sarah Kim, the leader of the human group, listened to the speeches without speaking. "The key to success," Veltar continued, "is showing the Void Stalkers that negotiation benefits everyone. We must demonstrate that trade and cooperation provide more resources than raiding and violence. Dr. Elena Kozlov, the human xenobiologist, wrote notes on a small tablet. She had spent the past 2 weeks reading every report about Void Stalker attacks. The patterns she found were disturbing. After the meeting, Commander Kim approached Captain Jin Ho, who had stayed on the station as a consultant. "Captain, you've seen these raiders in action. What did you notice about their tactics?" Jin Ho thought carefully. They were not desperate or hungry. They moved like professionals who enjoyed their work. The way they positioned their ships, the precise targeting, the deliberate cruelty. These are not people who raid because they have no choice. That matches our analysis, Dr. Kozlov said, joining the conversation. "I've studied the attack patterns from all 17 reported incidents. The Void Stalkers always had easier targets available, but they chose the ones that would cause the most fear." Commander Kim nodded. Fear is their weapon. But fear of what? While the diplomatic team prepared their careful first contact protocols, the human teams quietly began their own operations. Small, fast ships departed Kepler-7 every few hours. Officially, they were running routine supply missions to nearby colonies. In reality, they were mapping every reported Void Stalker attack site. Lieutenant Marcus Torres led one of these reconnaissance missions. His ship was equipped with the most advanced sensors Earth could provide, devices that could detect energy signatures from attacks that happened weeks ago. At the site of the merchant vessel Morning Star's destruction, Torres found something interesting. "Commander," he reported over encrypted communication, "the attack pattern here doesn't match what we expected. The Void Stalkers didn't just destroy this ship. They herded it to this exact location first." "Explain," Commander Kim replied. "Look at the debris field." Torres transmitted detailed scanner data. The Morning Star was damaged in at least 3 separate locations before reaching this point. Each attack drove the ship farther from help, farther from witness, deeper into empty space. Dr. Kozlov studied the data from her position on Kepler-7. "They're not just hunters," she concluded. "They're sadistic hunters. They enjoy the chase as much as the kill." Over the next week, the human teams visited 19 attack sites. At each location, they found the same pattern. The Void Stalkers would damage a ship just enough to disable its weapons and communications, then drive it to a location where no one could help. Only then would they complete their attack. Meanwhile, the diplomatic mission launched with great ceremony. Negotiator Prime Thex led a convoy of 5 ships toward the last known Void Stalker position. The ships broadcast messages of peace in 47 languages. They carried gifts representing the finest achievements of galactic civilization. The convoy never returned. "We found their ships," Scout Captain Lee reported 3 days later. "All 5 vessels, completely stripped. No survivors, but no bodies either." Commander Kim studied the tactical display. "They took prisoners?" "It looks that way," Lee confirmed. "But not for ransom. We detected massive energy discharges consistent with torture devices." Dr. Kozlov closed her eyes. "They're using the diplomatic team as bait. They want other ships to come looking for survivors." High Arbitrator Zool was furious when he learned about the convoy's fate. "How could this happen? We followed every protocol, every procedure for first contact." Ambassador Veltar seemed confused. "Perhaps we made an error in our approach. Different cultures have different expectations for initial communication. Ende. Captain Jin Ho watched the alien officials struggle to understand. He said carefully, "What if the Void Stalkers don't want to communicate? What if they see any attempt at negotiation as a sign of weakness?" "Impossible," Veltar replied quickly. "Every intelligent species can be reasoned with. Every culture has needs that can be addressed through dialogue. Commander Kim spoke for the first time in the official meetings. Ambassador, what if you're wrong? What if the Void Stalkers are not raiders by necessity, but predators by choice? The room fell silent. Finally, Zool spoke. Commander Kim, are you suggesting that an entire species could be inherently evil? Not evil, Dr. Kozlov interjected, but adapted to a lifestyle that requires other species to remain victims. Some Earth predators evolved to hunt specific prey. If the prey disappeared, the predator would die. The Void Stalkers may have evolved culturally to require a galaxy full of helpless victims. Veltar's crystal body flickered with agitation. This is speculation. We must continue diplomatic efforts. While you continue talking, Commander Kim said quietly, my teams will continue observing. But Captain Jinho noticed something in the human commander's voice. It was the same tone he had heard from hunters on Earth when they spoke about tracking dangerous animals. The humans were not just observing anymore. Over the next several days, human reconnaissance ships began operating in patterns that looked random to the other species. But Jinho recognized what he was seeing. The ships were not just mapping Void Stalker attack sites anymore. They were mapping the spaces between attack sites, the routes the raiders used to move unseen through the galaxy. Commander Kim, Jinho said during a private meeting, your people are not just gathering intelligence anymore. Are they? Sarah Kim looked at the merchant captain with steady eyes. Captain Park, when you were being hunted by those 3 ships, did you try to negotiate with them? No, Jinho admitted. I ran. And if running hadn't worked? Jinho thought about the question honestly. I would have fought. Or, I would have tried to ram their ships. Anything to stop them from killing my crew. Commander Kim nodded. The galaxy is full of innocent merchants like your crew, Captain. The Void Stalkers have been hunting them for 200 years. How many crews do you think have died while the galaxy's governments held meetings and planned diplomatic missions? Jinho understood. The humans were not just mapping the Void Stalkers' hunting grounds. They were learning how to hunt the hunters. What do you need from me? He asked. Keep being the helpful merchant captain who survived an attack, Commander Kim replied. Let the other species continue believing that humans are just gathering information. Some hunts require patience. Admiral Chen Wei stood in the command center of the human fleet ship, Determination, studying a 3-dimensional map that filled the entire room. The map showed 17 star systems in perfect detail, with red dots marking every known Voidstalker attack over the past 5 years. Show me the pattern analysis, Admiral Chen requested. Lieutenant Marcus Torres touched his control panel. Golden lines appeared on the map, connecting the attack sites in chronological order. Sir, the Voidstalkers operate from hidden bases in asteroid fields and dead systems. We have identified their primary command center, 6 secondary bases, and 11 supply depots. Dr. Elena Kozlov stepped forward. Admiral, we have also identified their leadership structure. The Voidstalkers are not a democracy or a traditional military. They follow pack dynamics with a single dominant leader called the War Leader. Current War Leader is named Krex, Commander Kim added. He commands from a massive ship hidden in the Shadow Rift Nebula. Every major raid requires his direct approval. Admiral Chen studied the data with the methodical approach that had made him one of Earth's finest military commanders. What about their numbers? WUD. Approximately 8,000 individuals spread across 43 ships, Torres reported. They have been recruiting from failed colonies and outcast groups for decades, but their core leadership consists of the original Voidstalker bloodlines. The Admiral walked slowly around the map, his hands clasped behind his back. Recruitment patterns? They take prisoners from successful raids, Dr. Kozlov explained. Some are tortured for entertainment. Others are forced to join their crews or face death. After a few years of conditioning, many prisoners become loyal raiders themselves. Stockholm Syndrome on a cultural level, Commander Kim observed. The victims identify with their captors to survive. Admiral Chen stopped walking and turned to face his officers. Recommendations? The room fell silent. Everyone understood that this was the moment when reconnaissance became something else entirely. Commander Kim spoke first. Sir, traditional military action will not work. The Void Stalkers have survived galactic military campaigns for 2 centuries because they use classic guerrilla tactics. Hit fast, disappear, wait for the enemy to leave, then return. However, Dr. Kozlov continued, their reliance on pack dynamics creates a vulnerability. Remove the war leader and the secondary leaders simultaneously, and their command structure will collapse. Torres brought up tactical displays. We have identified the location of every significant Void Stalker leader and the timing of their movement patterns. They follow predictable schedules for coordination meetings and resource distribution. Admiral Chen nodded slowly. You are proposing simultaneous strikes across 17 systems. Yes, sir, Commander Kim confirmed. Complete elimination of leadership, command ships, supply bases, and recruitment centers, all in a single coordinated operation. Time frame: 47 minutes for complete execution, Torres replied. We have calculated the exact timing needed to prevent any escape or communication between targets. The Admiral studied the faces of his officers. These were good people, professional soldiers who understood the difference between war and extermination. But they had also studied the reports from 19 merchant ship attacks. They had seen the evidence of what the Void Stalkers did to their prisoners. Casualty estimates? Admiral Chen asked quietly. Total elimination of Void Stalker military capability. Dr. Kozlov said without emotion. Some may escape in small ships, but without leadership or bases, they cannot continue organized raiding. I meant our casualties. Minimal expected losses, Commander Kim replied. The operation relies on surprise and overwhelming force applied simultaneously. The Void Stalkers will not have time to mount effective resistance. Admiral Chen looked at the map again. 17 systems, 43 targets, 8,000 lives. The mathematics were simple, but the implications were enormous. Have the galactic authorities approved this operation? No, sir, Commander Kim admitted. They are still attempting to establish communication through intermediaries. Ambassador Veltar believes he can convince the Void Stalkers to attend peace talks. And if he succeeds? Dr. Kozlov pulled up historical data. Sir, the Void Stalkers have attended peace talks 14 times in the past 2 centuries. Each time, they used the meetings to gather intelligence about their enemies. 3 times, they attacked the diplomatic sites during the talks themselves. Admiral Chen sighed. The galactic community meant well, but they had never faced predators like this. They thought every problem could be solved with the right words, the right incentives, the right understanding. They did not comprehend that some problems required a different kind of solution. What does Earth Command say about this operation? Full authorization, Commander Kim replied. Earth's government understands that the galaxy has a cancer that will not respond to treatment. Sometimes, surgery is the only option. Admiral Chen activated his personal communicator and contacted Captain Jin-Ho Park on Kepler 7. Captain, how are the diplomatic efforts proceeding? Admiral, they just announced plans for a second diplomatic mission, Jin-Ho replied. This time with even more representatives and better gifts. Ambassador Veltar is convinced that the first mission failed because they did not offer enough incentives. Any word on the fate of the first diplomatic team? 3 survivors were found yesterday. Jin-Ho's voice became grim. The Void Stalkers kept them alive for 3 weeks. The medical reports are difficult to read. 1 survivor died of his injuries this morning. The other 2 may never recover psychologically. Admiral Chen closed the communication link and looked at his officers again. Recommendation on timing? The second diplomatic mission launches in 4 days, Torres reported. War leader Krex will position his forces to intercept them. If we act now, we can prevent another massacre. Sir, Commander Kim added, there is one more factor to consider. Our intelligence indicates that the Void Stalkers are planning their largest raid ever. A coordinated attack on the core world's shipping hub. Estimated casualties would be in the tens of thousands. Dr. Kozlov nodded. They view the diplomatic missions as evidence of galactic weakness. Each failed negotiation makes them more aggressive. Admiral Chen made his decision. Issue orders to all fleet commanders. Operation Hunter begins in 18 hours. Simultaneous strike on all identified targets. No communication with Void Stalker forces. No warnings. No prisoners. The officers began to leave to prepare their ships. Admiral Chen called after them. One more thing. When this operation concludes, the galaxy will ask us many questions about our methods. Be prepared to explain that sometimes the most humane action is the most decisive one. Commander Kim paused at the door. Sir, what do we tell them about human nature? Admiral Chen looked at the map one final time, at all the red dots representing innocent crews who had died while the galaxy held meetings. We tell them the truth, Commander. We tell them that humans learned to hunt in packs long before we learned to negotiate. And when our pack is threatened, we hunt very efficiently. In the Shadow Rift Nebula, War Leader Krex received reports of increased human ship movement in the outer systems. He dismissed the information as unimportant. Humans were new to galactic civilization, weak traders who ran from conflict. Soon, he would teach them to fear the Void Stalkers, like every other species in the galaxy. Krex had no way of knowing that he had 17 hours and 23 minutes left to live. At exactly 0600 Standard Galactic Time, 17 human battle groups opened fire simultaneously across known space. War Leader Krex was reviewing plans for the core world's raid when his command ship's alarm systems activated. Through the bridge windows of his massive vessel, he watched human fighters emerge from the Shadow Rift Nebula like ghosts materializing from nowhere. How did they find us? Krex roared at his sensor operator. Unknown, War Leader. Our position was completely hidden. The nebula should have blocked all scans. The first salvo of human weapons struck Krex's ship with surgical precision. The humans did not target random sections of the hull. They aimed for communication arrays, weapon systems, and engine controls. Within 30 seconds, the mighty command vessel was disabled, but not destroyed. Return fire, Krex commanded. Weapons offline, his gunner reported. They hit our primary and secondary weapon controls with their opening attack. Krex had raided for 40 years. He had faced the best military forces in the galaxy, but he had never seen anything like this. The human ships moved with perfect coordination, each one knowing exactly where the others would be. Their weapons' fire was so precise, it seemed impossible. Signal all Void Stalker forces, Krex ordered. Emergency assembly at Rally Point 7. Sir, communications are down. They destroyed our transmitters first. Through the chaos, Krex began to understand what was happening. This was not a random attack or a desperate attempt at revenge. This was systematic elimination. 3 star systems away, Colonel Lisa Chang led her ground assault teams against the hidden harbor base. The asteroid facility had been carved out over decades and was considered impregnable by Void Stalker standards. Chang's teams took it in 14 minutes. Resistance minimal, Chang reported to Admiral Chen. They expected attacks from space, not boarding parties teleporting directly into their command centers. The human soldiers moved through the base corridors like water flowing downhill, following paths they had memorized from stolen Void Stalker construction plans. Every door they breached led to exactly where they expected. Every defensive position had been accounted for in their assault plan. Colonel, one of her sergeants called out. We found the prisoner holding area. Chang followed him to a section of the base that reeked of pain and fear. Dozens of cages held survivors from recent merchant ship attacks. Some prisoners were barely alive. Others cowered in terror at the sight of more armed figures. Medical teams to Section 7, immediately, Chang broadcast. We have civilians who need immediate evacuation. As her soldiers worked to free the prisoners, Chang studied the torture devices the Void Stalkers had used. These were not tools of interrogation. They were instruments of entertainment. The raiders had kept these people alive for weeks purely to enjoy their suffering. Chang activated her communicator. Admiral, recommend acceleration of timeline. These prisoners confirm that Void Stalkers are sadistic predators, not desperate survivors. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Alex Petrov led his starfighter squadron against the supply depot in the Kepler Outer Ring. His 12 fighters faced 37 Void Stalker defense ships in what should have been an impossible battle. But Petrov's fighters were not fighting fairly. They had studied every Void Stalker ship design, every weapon system, every tactical doctrine. More importantly, they fought as a perfect unit, while their enemies fought as individuals. Target their engine cooling systems, Petrov ordered. These ships overheat quickly under sustained fire. The human fighters executed attack patterns that confused the Void Stalker defenders. Instead of traditional dogfighting, the humans treated the battle like a mathematical equation. Precise strikes at specific intervals caused the enemy ships to malfunction one by one. How are they doing this? One Void Stalker pilot screamed over his radio before his ship's engines exploded. Petrov checked his mission timer. 11 minutes elapsed. His squadron had eliminated all enemy resistance with 0 losses. Control. This is Hunter 7. Depot secured. Ready for demolition teams. Back on Kepler 7 station, Captain Jin Ho Park stood in the observation deck watching the galactic officials receive reports from the operation. Ambassador Veltar's crystalline body flickered rapidly with agitation. This is barbaric, Veltar declared. The humans are conducting genocide. High Arbitrator Zul was reading tactical updates on his tablet. According to these reports, they are targeting only military installations and leadership. Civilian areas are being avoided. But they are not attempting to capture prisoners or negotiate surrender. Another delegate protested. Jin Ho stepped forward. Sirs, may I ask what the Void Stalkers did with prisoners they captured? The room fell silent. Everyone had read the medical reports from the 3 survivors of the first diplomatic mission. That is different, Veltar said weakly. We must be better than our enemies. We are, Jin-Ho replied. We are ending this efficiently, instead of allowing it to continue for another 200 years. On his command ship, Admiral Chen watched the operation proceed exactly as planned. Target after target reported successful elimination. No human ships had been lost. Enemy resistance was minimal because the Void Stalkers had never faced simultaneous attacks across their entire network. Admiral, Commander Kim reported, we have intercepted final transmission from War Leader Krex. Play it. The voice that came through the speakers was filled with disbelief and terror. All Void Stalker ships. This is your war leader. The humans. They are not like the other species. They hunt like we hunt, but better. They are apex predators. Do not underestimate them as we did. If any of you survive this, remember, humans are the hunters now. The transmission cut off as Krex's command ship was finally destroyed. Dr. Elena Kozlov studied the psychological profiles she had developed during weeks of observation. Admiral, the remaining Void Stalkers will never recover from this operation. Their entire cultural identity was based on being the galaxy's most feared predators. Today they learned they were just prey that had not yet met their proper predators. Admiral Chen nodded. Status report. 41 of 43 primary targets eliminated, Torres reported. 2 minor supply ships escaped into hyperspace, but without bases or leadership, they pose no significant threat. Casualty report? 0 human losses. Estimated 8,000 Voidstalker military casualties. Approximately 200 civilian survivors, who were being held as prisoners or slaves, have been rescued. The admiral looked at his chronometer. The operation had lasted 47 minutes. Exactly as calculated. 2 centuries of galactic terror had been ended in less than an hour. Signal all human ships, Admiral Chen ordered. Mission complete. Prepare for return to base. As the human fleet began regrouping, news of the operation spread throughout the galaxy. On 100 different worlds, merchant crews celebrated the end of their nightmare. In government offices, officials struggled to understand how the humans had accomplished what entire galactic militaries had failed to do. But war leader Krex's final transmission was already being analyzed by intelligence services across known space. The galaxy was beginning to realize that they had badly underestimated the newest members of galactic civilization. Humans did not just hunt efficiently. They hunted with the patience of creatures who had evolved as both predators and cooperative pack animals. And once they decided something was a threat to their pack, they eliminated that threat with systematic thoroughness that terrified even the galaxy's most warlike species. The age of Voidstalker terror was over. The age of understanding human nature was just beginning. 3 days after Operation Hunter, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The Great Chamber buzzed with conversations in dozens of languages as representatives from across known space tried to understand what the humans had accomplished. Ambassador Diana Volkov entered the chamber with quiet confidence. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes, but her presence seemed to command attention from every delegate. Behind her walked Captain Jin-Ho Park, now serving as cultural liaison between Earth and the galactic community. High Arbitrator Zool called the session to order with his massive gavel. We are here to address the recent action taken by human forces against the Voidstalker faction. Ambassador Veltar stood immediately. His crystalline body reflected the chamber lights in agitated patterns. Ambassador Volkov, your species has committed an act of genocide, the complete elimination of an entire culture without any attempt at negotiation or peaceful resolution. Diana Volkov rose slowly. When she spoke, her voice was steady and clear. Ambassador Veltar, I want to make sure I understand your concern. Are you suggesting that we should have negotiated with the Voidstalkers? Of course, Veltar replied. Every intelligent species has the right to exist. Every culture deserves the opportunity for peaceful coexistence. I see. Ambassador Volkov activated her tablet and projected data onto the chamber's main screen. Captain Park, would you please read the casualty figures from Voidstalker attacks over the past 5 years? Jin-Ho stood and read from his notes. 237 merchant vessels destroyed. 3,412 crew members killed. Unknown number of civilians captured, tortured, and murdered. Estimated economic damage of 40 billion galactic credits. And during those 5 years, Ambassador Volkov continued, how many times did the galactic community attempt diplomatic contact? 14 separate diplomatic missions, Jin-Ho replied. None successful. 3 missions resulted in the capture and torture of diplomatic personnel. A delegate from the insectoid Thex faction clicked his mandibles. But surely there was another way. Some method of communication or understanding that had not been tried. Dr. Elena Kozlov, sitting in the human section, spoke for the first time. Representative, may I share our xenopsychological analysis of Voidstalker culture? Zool nodded permission. Dr. Kozlov stood and activated her own presentation. The Voidstalkers were not raiders by necessity, she explained. They were recreational predators. Their entire social structure was built around the torture and murder of other species for entertainment. They captured civilians not for ransom, but to prolong their suffering for amusement. Images appeared on the screen showing recovered torture devices and prisoner holding areas. Several delegates made sounds of disgust. Their recruitment methods involved breaking the minds of captives until victims identified with their captors. Dr. Kozlov continued. This created a self-perpetuating cycle of violence that had continued for over 2 centuries. Ambassador Veltar flickered with uncertainty. But surely they could have been reformed, educated, shown better ways to live. Reformed into what? Ambassador Volkov asked gently. Their entire culture was based on causing pain to others. Their religion celebrated cruelty. Their economy depended on stolen resources. What exactly would you have reformed them into? A new voice spoke from the warrior clan section. The humans acted with honor, declared General Thok of the Krogan Alliance. They eliminated a threat that we were too weak to handle ourselves. Honor, Veltar's voice rose to a musical shriek. They exterminated an entire species. No, Captain Jinho said quietly. We eliminated a military force. The Void Stalkers were not a species or a nation. They were an organization dedicated to murder and slavery. The species they originally came from rejected them centuries ago. Ambassador Volkov nodded. Our intelligence indicates that the original Void Stalker homeworld expelled them as criminals over 300 years ago. Since then, they have been a nomadic military cult, recruiting from the worst outcasts of dozens of species. Dr. Kozlov added, we rescued 217 prisoners from Void Stalker bases. These individuals came from 14 different species. They confirm that the Void Stalkers viewed all non-members as prey animals. Zool studied the data thoughtfully. Ambassador Volkov, why did humanity choose to act alone? Why not work with galactic military forces? Because galactic military forces treat warfare as an honor-based conflict between equals. Ambassador Volkov replied. The Void Stalkers were not equals engaged in honorable combat. They were predators hunting helpless prey. This required a different response. What kind of response? Asked a delegate from the peaceful Althari collective. Ambassador Volkov looked around the chamber. Have any of you studied human evolutionary history? Silence. Humans evolved as cooperative hunters, she explained. We learned to work together to eliminate threats to our communities. When we identify something as dangerous to innocent people, we do not negotiate with it. We remove it efficiently and completely. But humans are civilized now, protested another delegate. Surely you have moved beyond such primitive instincts. Jinho smiled grimly. Sir, being civilized does not mean being helpless. It means protecting civilization from those who would destroy it. General Thok slammed his fist on his desk. The humans did what needed to be done. While we wasted time with useless words, they saved lives. How many lives? Zool asked. Dr. Kozlov consulted her data. Based on Void Stalker attack patterns, we estimate they would have killed approximately 2,000 more innocent civilians this year alone. Over the next decade, the number would have been much higher as they expanded their operations. Ambassador Volkov stood again. High Arbitrator Zool, the galactic community faces a choice. You can condemn humans for solving a problem you could not solve, or you can learn from our methods. And what would we learn? Veltar asked bitterly. That some problems cannot be negotiated away. Ambassador Volkov replied. That sometimes the most compassionate action is the most decisive one. That protecting innocent lives is more important than preserving abstract principles. A long silence fell over the chamber. Finally, Zool spoke. Ambassador Volkov, does humanity seek special treatment or expanded authority within the galactic community? No, she replied firmly. We prefer to be underestimated. It makes our work easier. Several delegates exchanged worried glances. Jinho noticed their expressions and decided to clarify. What Ambassador Volkov means, he said, is that humans work best when others do not expect us to be effective. We are happy to let other species handle problems through traditional diplomatic means. But when those methods fail and innocent people suffer, we will act. Without asking permission? Veltar demanded. Without wasting time, Ambassador Volkov corrected. The Voidstalkers were planning a massive attack on the core world's shipping hub. Our intelligence indicated they intended to kill tens of thousands of civilians. How long should we have waited for galactic approval while those people prepared to die? Zul consulted with his advisors for several minutes. When he returned his attention to the chamber, his expression was thoughtful. The Galactic Council will establish new protocols for dealing with threats that do not respond to traditional diplomatic methods, he announced. Humanity will be consulted in the development of these protocols. Ambassador Volkov bowed slightly. We are honored to assist. As the session ended and delegates began filing out, Jinho approached several representatives from smaller species. If you have questions about human methods or intentions, please feel free to contact our diplomatic mission. We want you to understand that we see ourselves as protectors, not conquerors. Later that evening, Ambassador Volkov and Jinho sat in a quiet cafe overlooking Kepler-7's main docking bay. Through the windows, they could see merchant ships coming and going freely, no longer afraid of mysterious raiders. Do you think they understand? Jinho asked. Some do, Ambassador Volkov replied. The warrior species recognize efficiency when they see it. The peaceful species will need time to accept that sometimes violence is the answer to violence. And if more threats arise, threats that cannot be negotiated with? Ambassador Volkov smiled. Then the galaxy will learn that humans do not hunt for sport or conquest. We hunt to protect our pack. And our pack now includes every innocent being in civilized space. Jinho nodded. The galaxy thought it was getting new trade partners when humanity joined the galactic community. Instead, they got new guardians. Ambassador Volkov agreed. Guardians who understand that sometimes the kindest thing predators can do is hunt very efficiently. Outside the window, a merchant vessel prepared for departure to the outer colonies. Its captain no longer worried about being hunted by mysterious raiders. Thanks to 47 minutes of decisive human action, the shipping lanes were safe again. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humans do not negotiate with monsters. They eliminate them and protect everyone else from having to face them. And they do it with a systematic thoroughness that makes other apex predators grateful to be on humanity's side.